episode, we are going to continue talking about our single zombie apocalypse and get the book. We'll put the link in the description, and it's really not that expensive, and I think if a lot of people had this and read Barry's words and his wisdom, you'll learn a lot and take away a lot. One thing that keeps coming up with these episodes is the us hearing the Lord. So us communicating with him, but then understanding him communicating with us. So I want to touch a little bit on, or really delve into, how he communicates with us. And the cool thing about this is that he communicates differently with everybody, and it's unique to each person. Now, we might have different channels of communication that we can get it from, but people have different ways of receiving that and understanding him, because I believe his language isn't a linear language like our English language. And I actually can go off on several episodes. I'm actually slowly writing a book about communication, because I speak English, Portuguese, Spanish, and sign language. And so those languages have taught me about the importance of communication and how it's changed the way that I think about communication. And it's changed the way that I've understood how the Lord communicates with us. And I believe, so that's why I think when we read, no words can describe. Well, that's true. Our limited language, it's a linear, language that doesn't contain a depth of communication. It's reduced to words, and those words change meaning over time. So even reading scriptures, words will mean something different to me than it did to somebody 50 years ago versus 100 years ago and 200 years ago. So that's why I think languages are limiting. So if we understand, a lot of times, I'm just going to speak from my experience. I wanted to hear the Lord speaking to me in my language, and it didn't happen a lot. Most of the time, but as soon as I started to understand how he spoke to me, and that it wasn't through a language per se, then it just really opened up a lot of miracles that I started to recognize just because of the way that I felt him communicating with me. Before, I wasn't paying attention in those ways. One way is dreams. I feel dreams are a good way and visions, and whatever you want to call them, because sometimes they are not during sleep, but we need to be in a state of mind ready to receive those things. And especially if we're willing to write them down, then he'll give them to us more clearly and more details and more often. But dreams are just a one way. So it's not like that's for everybody. But for me, that's what happens. And so the cool thing is about dreams is that they are not, they contain a lot more information, and that's why I think they're efficient. So you can substitute the word with visions. Okay. So for example, there was this dream that I had, and I think I'll just share the dream instead of just being generic. So I was walking down this gravel road, and it was kind of like an Iowa looking, so plains, no mountains, it's just a gravel road. And walking down, and I started to see buildings, very advanced looking buildings on my left with these spaceships leaving. But I knew in the dream that it was our technology that we had invented, and we were trying to leave Earth. And because we were eating up all the resources, and so there's a group of people that wanted to leave Earth. And then there was another and so then as I was walking down this gravel road, I saw these group of people, and we all looked similar, and but we were just calmly gathered together as we were watching the ships leaving. But then all of a sudden, this other group of I want to say UFOs, but that could spark, again, I'm limited by the English language, but so we'll just call it other spaceships from a different technology, if that makes sense. So like you would think of spaceships like we would know them, say like Star Trek spaceships versus Star Wars spaceships. They were just different kinds, right? So anyway, so this new group of spaceships came in and started attacking the other ones. And there was this big war. Well, the group of us that we were just watching this, and we didn't we weren't riled up. There was no emotion really. We were just observing it. And then the fighting started to die down, and then the remaining ships that was left over, they left. So then it was just us group of people, and we kind of just innately knew that this was, now we get Earth to ourselves. And so we started to explore Earth, and I was trudging through snow, but I found something that was sticking out of the snow. I pulled it up, and it was an old like musket, and it had this tag on it that said 1776. So anyway, point is, it's kind of a weird dream if you just say it on the surface like that. But I wrote it down, and I knew it was significant just because of the feeling, and I had remembered the details like that. So I wrote it down. So it was years later, I would say between 7 and 10 years later, that dream never really did anything for me, but it started to come back up when there was all of this fighting going on online, on social media. Started around, I want to say it after maybe 2015, 2016, when social media was really developing, and people were really fighting online. I mean, obviously it's still happening today, but maybe, on Facebook, and people expressing their opinions, but then getting mad at somebody else and calling them a racist and all these things. And I had participated in a little bit of it, not, at least getting riled up and being like, no, that's not right. Anyway, when those times would happen, I automatically thought back to that dream, and it had that same feeling. There was a certain feeling about it. And so then I started to understand that dream was, I don't need to be part of that fighting. Now, this could sound like I'm standing on the sidelines, but for me, it was a lesson in contention, is to stay out of contention no matter what that meant. For right now, this was for me, specifically for me, and how I was supposed to be acting. I'm all about defending. I'm all about standing up for rights or whatever, but for that, I know that message was for me specifically. And so I started pulling out all of this knowledge and started to change my actions, all because of this dream. And so I started to understand that it was the Lord communicating to me. If he had just said, stay away from contention, it wouldn't have meant as much to me, so using my language, but not my connotation with contention. So he would be limited to my language and what I understand from that. So instead he used imagery and feelings during that, the just innate understanding of me being in that scenario. And there were certain feelings about it. So there were no words, but there were that combination, right? So his communication has more depth than what words can do their words are limiting. So again, my whole understanding of how the Lord communicates changed, and he communicates through words sometimes. So, through the scriptures. If you want to hear his voice, read the scriptures. That is his voice. And so, but for us personally, we're leading our lives, making decisions, and to have that guide, him guiding us through different things, and to understand, maybe there's something that I need to change about myself, and so then it preps me for this other thing that I'm about to go through. And so him guiding us, but I need to understand how he does that. And if I'm just waiting for him to just say some words so that I know what to do, that's, I think, is limiting him. And so, anyway, so I wanted to bring that up as far as the Lord communicating to us. I hope I'm being generic enough so that anybody that might be listening or watching can be mindful of that about themselves, to be open enough to figure out how the Lord communicates with you, and look for other ways that the Lord might be communicating to you that you might not have been understanding so far. And that is the same for me in my life. I'm still learning and still growing. It's not just dreams. It's not just now, after Barry and I have been talking for a while, it is, for me, it's conversations with other people is very revealing. Things come out that are beautiful that I never would have reached on my own. And so he uses other people to communicate with us, and we get in sync with him. And then I can go forward and endure the rest of that day, because it was so peaceful after that feeling, just like this conversation right now. And I'll have this new boost for the rest of the day. And so that is communication. Getting in sync with the Lord, I think, is a better way of understanding how the Lord communicates with us, is that us becoming in sync with his light, with his power, that then we are able to navigate whatever comes our way, instead of, oh no, something came my way and it was really hard and I fell back into this thing, I must be terrible, blah, blah, blah. But now this new way is, oh, I need to sync up. What do I need to do in order to find that syncing moment again? Because something came up and I got more darkness in my mind, and I need to get rid of that. But we might not have full control over that, but at least we can find it quicker. And I think that's what Barry brought up too, is that sometimes we'd be in those moments for 6 months, but now it's quicker, because I think we're able to find our way back into the, syncing up with the Lord sooner. And then it always, most of the time, but I think always involves other people syncing up, and this new knowledge that comes out as we talk with them, and it changes us and we become better. I'm rambling now.
Well, even after you shared that dream with me a while back, like it gave me that insight as well. So it reinforced my thoughts of, like, don't get involved with two people battling it out, or sides of groups. It's not me standing on the sidelines, a good man doing nothing. It's not that. It was, as soon as you get involved in that, then Satan wins, no matter who's right.
Yeah.
And that's where all these insights in this book come, is because of the hundreds of times that I've been sitting around a kitchen table like this, and then exchanging experiences like that, like a dream that you had and then a dream that I had. Perhaps the person that I'm talking to is going through a cycle of doubts, and then is expressing their feelings to me, and then I would have something to say. But then the next week I would be going through my cycle of doubts, and then that person giving me insights during that time. So it's like friends and family are therapists. Mm-hmm. Like I feel like those are the true therapists. And We can go to therapy if we need to, but I feel like the best therapists are trusted friends and family. And the tragedy is that some people don't have that, but it's the goal to get there.
So you can find them.
You could find them. Yeah. Put yourself in the right circles. And that's where the effort of just being in the right circles with other like-minded people is inspiring. And that's where you could hear the Lord's voice. Going to church, religious people hear that all the time and go to church. And it could be a behavior that you just do routinely, but what it does is like, it puts you in the network of people, and it exposes more chances of little nuggets of insight that come out in that time. And it gives you that perspective. And it happens, every time that I go to church, it happens. Like I get that perspective again, take the sacrament or the communion, and I get that perspective again. It's refreshing. And so I know that when I go back to my life, I carry that with me, even though I go through the cycle as the world weighs down on me again. Those little nuggets of truth are in the back of my mind now. And so they could resurface at any time when I'm in a conversation.
I think that's awesome, because one thing that I wanted to say was that, so I've had some friends that have gone through some really hard times, and they say their spouse got involved with another group of people, and that group of people was a really bad influence. So in that circumstance, that person wasn't listening to anybody except for negative attention. And that led to some really bad things. It led to adultery. It led to this rift in the family. And so when we're talking about, finding the right people, you have to know who's actually healthy for you. Right. And I think it has to do with, what would you say that are some of the ways that that's the right kind of people to be around? Because I think there's a lot of ways, but I just want to make sure, because sometimes, people are like, well, that sounds really good. And it's actually, they're not a good influence for them. So what would be things that you could think of?
Well, I don't know. That's a good question. I would have to resort to saying that we're coming down to the last days. And so the only answer left is Jesus. And so people may have different answers and whatever, but that's why I keep coming down to that. We have to hear his voice and have a relationship with him first to start with. And then we have discernment on who we're attracted to, who also want that. So if they're whatever level they're on in that progression, like, and so that may answer like, however you find those people who are trying to do that.
Yeah. So I would say if it's people that are looking inside themselves and trying to be better, and they are not blaming anybody else for their problems.
Yeah.
Right. So the fruits of that group of people would be, are they trying to get you to come into that group, but you can tell that the fruits are not good by the way that they talk about other people? Is it very negative? Do you come away with a feeling after you leave that group? Is there a fear, or is there a negative, or is the high anxiety? Is there a negative spirit? Or is it a conversation where you come away humbled and being excited to share light with other people? And I don't know, I think because I have seen some people that did come away with, but I think you look at the fruits of the group of people, they were all bashing other people and saying that they were basically the group to be with. And then it led to infidelity. And so it's all these. So are they being unfaithful themselves to their spouses? Are they encouraging you to be a better spouse versus no, you do you, or whatever, or your truth, or whatever it is, more selfish desires. So anyway, for some reason I felt compelled to kind of try to define that. But I agree. I think most of the time a lot of therapy can be reached through, if we have supportive people around us and we're communicating with them and they're encouraging us to do good things. And but maybe not everybody has that resource yet. And I think that's ultimately what God does. That's why families are important, especially in our church. Families are crucial. And I think that's one of the reasons, like, is to have a healthy family life. That's our goal. And so if we don't have that right now, there's a hope, and there's the beautiful blessing of, like, because the strength that brings, having a healthy family relationship, it brings so much strength. People make so much better decisions. They don't end up in the really, really bad places when they know they have a strong support group. I don't remember where we started.
Well, that goes back to, sometimes it's a lifetime to restore a generational destruction of your family. And some people are in the middle of that destruction, and some people are exploring how are they going to fix something. Some people don't know how to fix anything in their family. Our parents, they've had their own struggle of, like, trying to restore a faith and hold on to their faith in Jesus Christ and their relationship with him. And then that's what they tried to teach us as kids, is that to continue that faith in Jesus Christ. And so it feels like a restoration in our generation, like we're feeling that restoration. And other people are just, that's why I feel like we're probably at the most intense time right now to be able to discern the events and voices. And I say the world's voices, groups' voices, opinions. It is this sea of chaos everywhere. And that's why we need to, that's why it's a fragile, delicate thing, is the Lord's voice. When we feel that spirit and we finally have it again, we have to shut out everything in our life that is just voices, opinions, and this and that. Being on this side, this is how you cope. This is how you overcome. This is who you are. This is who you could identify as, so you can have fulfillment. This is and you have all of these voices. And so that is a good question of, it is so crucial now to seek after hearing his voice. And once you do, you start to learn to know what to do to get his voice again. And then it's clear, like, once you feel his voice, and you could start to have discernment of, okay, maybe these people that I'm with, or this group, or this way of thinking, it isn't leading me to, like, this increase of healing or increase of love towards all people.
Or maybe they were good for a moment.
Yeah.
But now I'm not that you're better than them, but just more as you keep going through life, I'm like, okay, well, now I need to, I see there's more to life than even what they were talking about. And so if they're not receiving, it well, of what the knowledge that I'm finding, or receiving the Lord, then, kind of this progressive path of returning to the Lord, returning to heaven. And it's just this, so whatever that entails, because I hate limiting it to, it's like, find a group of people, and then you do what? You just stick with them for the rest of your life. Well, what if, maybe that's not it. So it's more of again, that understanding the Lord, and understanding how he communicates with you, and then acting on that, and moving and changing according. And then I think, because then whatever comes our way, we adapt and we keep, but we keep listening to him, because he's ultimately, everybody's going to fail us. I've probably failed you several times or whatever. And it's just, but it's more of like, we coming back together, but your foundation is based on your relationship with the Lord. And it's not based on yours and mine with him. It's more of, we come together and we get strengthened, but then you go back to your individual relationship with him.
Yeah.
So
I was nodding when you said I probably failed you. And I was like,
yes.
no, what I was really nodding for is that I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
And because my relationship to Jesus Christ is my foundation. And so if anybody else has in my life come short or not there for me when I need somebody or to talk to or whatever, it doesn't matter to me, because because I know every single person has a limitation, and the only person who really is there at all times is Jesus Christ. Mm-hmm. And so and in fact, this is a good thought. When you feel isolated and you feel like nobody in the world, you feel like you're the only one in the world and you feel alone, that's exactly what the Lord wants. He wants you to be isolated with him. And that's what I learned through those dark, feeling alone times is, am I the only one thinking this? Like, everybody goes through those moments. But those are the times that Jesus Christ has you for himself during that time. And that's when you express your thoughts. And
so then it's based on our perceived, I don't know what the word is, our perception of what those times are, because we might see that as a bad thing. Well, I'm alone, and so then therefore, doesn't he love me? Why wouldn't he want me to be? But I like that point of like, no, not that he wants you to be alone for the rest of your life, but there are alone moments that he needs you to have, because we all could be influencing each other, maybe in not the best of ways, even though I have good intentions. And it's kind of like when somebody says, oh, I received this revelation for you, I think you should do this. Well, that's not good, because I am imperfect. And so how could I? Now, sometimes that does happen, but what point is that those alone times are really important to have as well, so that you can make sure that you are on track with him, and it's not dependent on somebody else, because that person will ultimately fail you. Yeah.
And you just think about all throughout the scriptures, all disciples, men and women in the scriptures, they all have those experiences. Like Jesus Christ himself had those experiences of going out into the wilderness and being alone with the Father for a while and praying to him and just being alone with him. And then Jesus himself said, Father, why hast thou forsaken me? Like, there are times that you feel alone, but there's purpose in those moments of feeling the contrast of good and evil, light and darkness, and inspiration, and then no inspiration. And so when you know the difference, and then when you feel the inspiration or the light, it becomes even stronger and more joyous.
You see it clearer.
You see it clearer, and you don't dismiss it. You don't take it for granted, and it's a lot more joyous that you're feeling it, like, oh, that's it. And all the apostles, all of the men and women in the scriptures that are on a journey of faith, they all feel those same things. Like, you feel it in I lost I guess Jonah. There's Moses.
Yeah, I mean, was it Peter? Well, yeah, so many examples, I think, of just being cast out alone. There was
John on the island of Patmos.
John. Yeah, and
he was isolated.
Yeah, he's isolated, and
the greatest revelation came from that, the book of Revelation.
And
think about that.
Another one I think of, because I bring this up often. about Barry is John the Baptist. I feel like Barry is a modern day John the Baptist. And what I mean by that is John the Baptist didn't really fit the mold of the cultural standard back, in the day. I mean, he was wearing camel hair and he was eating locusts, and Barry wears camel hair and he eats locusts on a daily basis. But point is, it's not culturally then it was weird.
Yeah.
And so yet he was preparing the way for the Lord. Like that's what he was called to do. Yet he was isolated from the culture, almost to like not be, he needed to be that way in order to be totally on the Lord's errand and will, versus, what would you call it? Influenced by the culture.
Mm.
And, so anyway, I'm sure there's lots of other reasons. I'm not the Lord, but it was another example of just because somebody's not living, in suburbia and they go to a specific school and they wear certain clothes, blah, 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 and they may be kind of an outsider, but that's actually can be a very, very valuable thing to be able to understand the Lord on a clearer. And so I'm not encouraging people to move out of suburbia, but maybe I am.
Well, I appreciate that perspective, and sometimes I don't feel that way about myself.
Well, I'm sure that's what John the Baptist would have said.
Yeah. And so what I would do is I would expand it to the principle to everybody. So you would figure out your own mission, and you would figure out that every person has a unique vision and a unique mission, and just as unique as they are as a person.
Yeah.
And so I'm sure every person has felt like, they're so unique and different from everybody else. You should be feeling that. It's not a negative thing. It's very positive. And that's why you're irreplaceable in the Lord's eyes. Like nobody could replace any one of us.
And there are certain people that I've seen this in your life. There are certain people because of your circumstances. So I've seen this, because you've been single all this whole time, there have been countless people that you've interacted with that you would not have interacted with had you been married.
Yeah.
Not that this to say, oh, good, it was good that you weren't married. It has nothing to do with good or bad. It has everything to do with following the Lord, and just he has a mission for all of us. Yeah. And so my mission is different. Yeah. But yet we come together and we boost each other, and then we go out on our missions separately and we go our ways. There are people that I interact with that you never would have, and same for me. So that's what I love about it, is that, so you're right. Like every person that no matter who's listening to this or whatever, is that you do have, and I bet you can think of people right now there that you could have a good influence towards or on or whatever, that nobody else would have been able to have except for you. And so that's 100% agree. I think that's what you're saying too, is that's exactly why the Lord has you in those circumstances that you're in. You could feel like a victim, or you could feel like, you know what? I'm in these circumstances, whatever they are, and I get to use these to help other people, and whoever that is, that's who you were called to do that for.
So here's the easy way of identifying that. Go to your phone history, go to your text history, go to your calling history, go to your Facebook messaging history, your email history. Who are the people that you've interacted with within the past year or so? And you can see the individuals that you have been connected with, that the Lord has put you around and for a positive influence. And these are for the people who are seeking to find answers. If people aren't doing that, they may not find those purposes and those inspirations. But when you're on the path of seeking Jesus Christ and learning about yourself and learning what he has for you to do, that's a easy way of finding out.
I think this could have been 2 episodes what we were just talking about, but that's right. I think because something that happened with me was that I don't know what caused me to text this certain person, but I hadn't talked to them for years, but I had texted them and I felt like I should. And so again, it wasn't this big thing like text Joe Schmo. It was more of a just, oh, I haven't talked to this person in a while, and I sent him a text, but then we have had the most spiritual, we have had this reformation in our friendship, and now we can just text whatever with like gospel questions or whatever jokes, and it has boosted both of us. And so again, it's like, so again, if we're understanding how the Lord communicates with us, and whether it just be an inspiration like that of just, I'm gonna text this person, and then all of a sudden this whole world opens up of like, that's who you were supposed to be talking to, and now you've helped each other, and now you can go on and help other people. Because I'm going to be bringing some of these conversations up that I've had with this friend of mine that are valuable insights that I think a lot of people should hear. And so again, see how that has had an effect. Anyway, so we'll stop right here.
Yeah.
Now enjoy this footage of a bird with some peaceful music, and think about the people that you should be communicating with and how the Lord speaks to you.